Okay, so we're going to start with a few neck rolls. Let's do 5 each side. Okay, now we're doing shoulder rolls forward. 3, 4, 5. Try and lift those shoulders as high as you can. Push the shoulders apart, squeeze them together. Really get the most out of this movement. And let's go the other way. So push those shoulders up to your ears, squeeze them back. Remember, the goal is 10 reps here. Everyone should be able to do this one. This is a pretty easy exercise. Okay, now we're going hands up and down. So really try and get those hands up overhead. You're going to feel a little stretch in your traps. And as you go back, you want to feel that stretch on the front of your shoulders. Nice and loose. Feel a little bit of extension in the upper back as those hands come up. Okay, now we're going to bring the hands back and forth again. We're trying to keep those hands quite high. You want to feel like you're getting a nice stretch on the chest as you do these. They don't have to be super aggressive, but I feel like that helps get a little bit more of a stretch. With the forward circles now, again, we want to keep these quite loose and flowing. So nice big circles all the way up overhead, all the way around. You're going to feel that stretch as the hands come back. Now, backward circles, same as the forward circles. I feel like you can probably get your hands a little bit further back on these ones. Really nice exercise for just opening up that chest. So now we're going to go into hip circles. The key with these is to really push into the corner of the hips. Don't try and make them look sexy by keeping those hips in nice and tight. Push into those corners, get the most out of it. Good. Just see Emily here has got a pretty good hip circle. She's not worried about being embarrassed even though she's out in public. So now we're going to swing the legs here. I think Emily can go a little bit higher than these if I was going to be a little bit picky. There you go. She's getting a little bit better there now. All the way back, all the way forward. You want to try and stretch the hamstrings and the hip flexors with this exercise. Once you're on 10 on one side, swap over. Good. So this is for balance as well as a little bit of an active stretch. Good, so these are the same, but we're coming across the body now. Looking to feel that stretch in your glute med and your adductors. Again, this is just another real fun way to challenge that balance as well as being a bit of an active flexibility drill. I included these because, yeah, that one-legged balance is super important in beginners and it's going to carry you a long way if you can get comfortable doing these. It really does help you progress into more advanced exercises like pistols and shrimp squats and even slacklining. So now we're going to come down into a lunge stretch or Samson stretch. So really pushing those hips forward, really deep stretch on that. You're going to put the hands up overhead and that's going to help you feel it a little bit more in your psoas. So psoas is a hip flexor that's actually right in your belly. So it attaches from your spine all the way down onto your leg. And that's what brings your knee, it's one of the muscles that brings your knee up. This will help get that open up a little bit, especially if you spend all day sitting. This is a great exercise to help you loosen up. So yeah, we're going to do kind of 15-20 seconds on each side for these. Only go as deep as you can. If you can actually squeeze your rear glute, that's going to help you push into the stretch a little bit more and you should feel it more on that hip flexor. So swivel hips, another super useful one. I find in the fitness industry there's a lot of focus on external rotation, but this really challenges the hips to internally rotate. You see, by keeping the knee that isn't going towards the ground vertical, we can really challenge that true hip internal rotation. These are great for like people with lower back pain or hip issues. So the trick with these ones, Emily actually does her first rep with a little bit of a rounded back, but you'll see I correct her. The goal here is to keep your legs a little bit unstraight. So just a tiny little bend in the knee, but we're keeping the back absolutely straight. If you do this right, you should feel the stretch in the middle of the hamstrings, not towards the calves or the hips. It's a really nice way to kind of warm those up, get everything moving. I really, really like these. So yeah, the trick here is to push the hips back, pull the chest up, and feel like you're moving from the hips instead of the back. So Emily's doing these really well now. That's really good form. With all of the dumbbell exercises in this, something between 2 to 5 kilos is enough. This is more like weighted mobility than real heavy weighted exercise. It's more about just getting things moving right, and that little bit of weight can kind of help drag you into some stretches and be a little bit more active with the movement. Maybe make you pay a little bit more attention. Now this is a Jefferson curl. We're rounding the back in this one and then leaning all the way back. So we're opening the spine up and then closing it off. We're coming down slowly, rolling the spine one vertebrae at a time. She's keeping the legs straight, so she's squeezing those quads. Touches the dumbbell to the floor and then slowly rolling back up. And as she comes over, she uses that dumbbell again to kind of pull her into a little bit more extension than she'd be able to if she didn't have that weight. Now don't rush these, we're only doing 5 reps. It's nice and slow. You really want to feel that lower back decompressing and opening up. You might get some funny looks if you're doing this in a gym or a public place because people tell you that you are, quote, doing your deadlifts wrong, but it's a totally different exercise with a different intention. This is about active flexibility, opening up that back. Yeah, Emily's doing a great job on these. Maybe she can get a little bit more flexibility in her lower back over time. That is a little tiny bit stiff. I'd like to see a little bit more movement there. But these are pretty good. And you see she's getting that dumbbell all the way to the floor pretty easily there. There you go. So she's opening that chest up pretty well too. So we're now taking that dumbbell behind the head. That's going to force you to really keep the chest open here. We're going with the wide stance. Point is we're going to feel this in the lower back and the hamstrings, keeping that chest up and hinging those hips back. With the legs wide like this, you'll find that you can go a little bit deeper than you did with the good morning in general. As for the width of the legs, about double shoulder width is fine. You don't need to go super, super wide. You shouldn't be trying to do the splits with this. If your feet can get a kind of 70 to 90 degree angle, that's a pretty good width. Yeah, Emily's doing a real good job with these here. So now we're taking that dumbbell and we're going to go round the world. This is a great exercise for kind of opening up and challenging that spine at some weird angles that you maybe wouldn't see in a standard kind of weighted gym routine. This is super, super helpful because in general, you're not going to be able to keep your back straight in daily life. So hitting these kind of little off angles, especially in your warm-ups or in this kind of prep phase, is going to help prevent injury in the long run. Really give you that healthy spine that's going to last you a lifetime. Good, so you should feel that stretch in the back, maybe a little bit in the lats as you come over. Now we're going into dumbbell windmills. So we're going to come into a T stance. So one foot's pointing forward and the other's facing kind of to the side. Now, as you come down, you're going to internally rotate that shoulder. So you're trying to turn that dumbbell in, and then as you come up, you're going to squeeze it out. So you'll see Emily here, she can maybe get a little bit more in, but she's really turning that dumbbell in as she comes down. She's got a lot of rotation in her thoracic spine and a little bit of stretch in her, that would have been her right hamstring, and now it's going to be in her left hamstring. Good. So you're trying to keep the legs straight here. If you're not quite so flexible, you can bend the knees a little bit, and that'll kind of give you a little bit of an ease off, or you can go a little bit shallower. You don't have to go all the way down with those. Okay, now we're going into our squat series. So we're going to come just down a parallel for this one. Emily went a little bit too deep with the first ones. So use that weight as a counterbalance to help you get all the way down. It's also going to help you keep your back straight. I really like using the weight with these. Definitely helps. So yeah, just stop at 90 degrees and come back up. Try and drive the knees out a little bit with these as well. You'll find that engages the hips just a little bit better on the outside. So it's okay for the knees to come forward on these ones too. Don't worry about keeping a vertical shin. So now we are going to go all the way down, and for this you're going to have to round the back just a little bit at the bottom, and that's okay. What we really do is we're decompressing the spine, working on getting the full range of motion out of those hips and knees. This isn't really a power move, but it's a great stretch, and you need to be able to hit this position to kind of be healthy in the long run. So this next exercise here is an inward squat. This is a really valuable exercise if you play sports or if you're into surfing, something like that. Hitting those knees at an off angle like this is really going to help strengthen up that MCL tendon and make you a little bit more robust against injury. And likewise, this one is going to be a little bit of a preventative measure against rolling your ankle. Okay, so she's going to be on the blade of the foot. She's using that weight as a counterbalance and shoving the knees all the way out. Emily's going super low on these. You can go almost all the way down to the floor. Don't feel bad if you can't get all the way there though. Just go as low as you can. That might not even be parallel for some of you guys, and that's absolutely okay. So now we're going to go into a wide stance here. And again, this is really just working on stretching the hips. Use that weight as a counterbalance, keep the chest up. Really try and drive those knees out. Most people struggle to get lower than parallel with this, and that's absolutely fine. You should feel a real kind of loosening up in the hips. Right, so now we're going to go with side to side squats. Emily's got pretty good technique here. She can go maybe a little bit lower. The goal is to get all the way down. That counterbalance with the dumbbell is going to help. If you can't get all the way down, you've got two options here. You can either stop where you feel like you can't, and once you get used to that, you can actually come up on the toe in order to get that weight all the way down. You can try both of those out, and they both work pretty good. So we're going to put that dumbbell down now and move on to the band series. This is for the shoulders. So we're going to start off here. You can double that band up. I feel that works a little bit better. And we're going to try and push those elbows as straight as you can and pull them all the way down to your bum. You should get a really nice stretch across your shoulders and chest for this one. One thing to work out for, really try to keep your abs nice and tight and the ribs closed down. You shouldn't be flaring those ribs out and overarching the lower back on this. So 10 reps of these, we're going to pull it all the way down, full front and back. You see a lot of people using this exercise with a bar. I find the band is actually a little bit more forgiving on the shoulders and kind of a little more personalizable, because you're going to stretch as wide as you need to do the movement with really good form. And Emily here's got pretty good form on this one. So now we're going to take the band and we're going to work on external rotations. Just one bit of the band is enough. You find it's more important to get a bigger range than a stronger contraction with this one. Again, we don't want to arch the back and overextend here, so we want to keep those abs nice and tight. Elbows pinch into the side, and you'll feel that chest kind of naturally open up as you do this movement. Now we've got a lot of movements for the shoulders. We're going to go straight one off the other like we have been doing with all these exercises. The first one is what we'll call a T. So we're going to move back. Emily's got her elbows a little bit too bent for my liking here. I'd like to see them a little bit straighter. We want the movement really nice and smooth. Feel the contraction at the bottom, control that resistance back as well. You want to feel like the shoulder blades are pushing together in this exercise. And again, we don't really want to stick the belly out, so we want to keep those abs nice and engaged the whole time. You should feel this between the shoulder blades and the back of the shoulder, those rear delts. Now this one, we're going to pull the chest up. Again, really want to drive those elbows straight. Emily is letting these bend just a little bit there. Okay, that was a little bit better there. You should feel this in the back of the triceps, actually, if you're doing this one right. It's really good to work on that active shoulder strength in extension, which a lot of people, especially if you do a lot of weightlifting, you sit at a desk, are lacking. Now these are called Ys, and again, we want to try and keep those elbows straight. Don't overarch the back, pull back. I like these in a little bit narrower than where she started, but yep, she's pulled into a really nice technique here, and that looks excellent. So again, you should feel this back of the shoulders and down the middle of the rhomboids of the back. And this is working on shoulder flexion. Now this one is working the rotator cuffs in the shoulder, so she's going to bend her elbows at 90 degrees, keep them nice and high, and pull those back just using the rotator cuffs. These are pretty tough. You should feel pretty intense burning in the shoulders by this point. Notice how we're not straightening the arms back, we're just working on that rotation. Again, try not to stick out the belly or overarch the back. So take a little bit of a step back, and we're just going to work on rowing here. So you want to press the shoulders down, and as you do that and pull back, you should feel a nice little bit of tension in the lats. So that's by the side of your body. You should feel those wings kind of really engaging as you hit that contraction at the top. You can even hold that for a second to accentuate that. So we're going to turn around now, and we're working on that shoulder flexion from the front. The goal of this one is to really drive the shoulder blades forward, engage that serratus anterior, and push those shoulder blades apart. Really focus on almost rounding that upper back and driving those shoulder blades apart. That's what's going to give you the best outcome of this exercise. So don't pinch them together, push them really far apart. Great, Emily's got good form here. So we're going to lean over, and this one is like a shoulder press. So you should feel this on the front and lateral delts and a little bit in the triceps. So you see how she's kind of lining that body up with the rope a little bit. The instability in the bands actually makes this quite an interesting one. She's keeping her elbows in quite close and not letting them flare out. Now from here, it's if you've seen the movie The Hulk and he claps together, that's what she's doing here. You can actually get a little bit of an internal rotation of the hands, like she's just doing there, and that will help engage the pec a little bit more as you come through. Notice how those hands are actually coming back behind her body, so she's stretching the pec out as she's working the muscle. So this is both a stretch and a strengthening exercise, like pretty much everything else in this series. So nice and smooth, really feel that muscle working. Good, so now we're going to double up on that band, and we are just working on holding this nice and still, arms straight, and pull the belly in as tight as you can on this one. So squeeze your bum, roll those hips into a posterior pelvic tilt so your back is flat, not arched. And as you pull that belly in, you should feel a really intense contraction in the obliques. This is actually a super intense exercise for the abs. This might be the hardest one in the series, actually. So she's holding it there, she's squeezing those triceps and then pulling that belly in and tucking those hips under. Super intense exercise. Really, it doesn't look that hard, but trust me, if you do this right, it's almost like cramping in the abs. Great, so she's going to put that band away now. And we are moving on to the floor series. So we're starting here with a table hip thrust. You want to get those hips really nice and high on this one, and you should feel a little bit of stretch in the chest and the biceps as well. If you're doing this properly, you'll feel those glutes working as you squeeze them together as you hit that extension at the top. So try not to let the knees flare out too much. You'll notice that you get a little bit more of the glute maximus if you can keep those knees together. Single leg hip thrust. So from there we're going to move straight into a single leg hip thrust. We're doing 5 on each side, and try not to let that hip drop down on the side with the leg is out. 3. So these are quite challenging. 4, if you can't get all the way up, that's something to really focus on. Let's change over. Only 5 on each side, so really give them your all on these. 1, 2. So that leg that is not driving into the ground stays nice and straight. Pull the chest back and over. 5. Okay, sit down, shake it out. So now we're going to go into a one arm bridge. So as you come up through these, you're going to bring the hand over, try and look behind you and drive that hand back. You should get a really nice stretch across the abs and also a good old squeeze in the glutes too with these. Really fun exercise, and I think they look pretty cool too. So it's just 5 on each side. Take your time with these, nice smooth tempo. Again, squeezing the glutes. If you're coming up with the right hand, you'll probably have to focus really hard on that right glute. Great, so we're going to switch into a side plank now. So up she comes, and that hand comes towards the sky. She's got a little bit of an overarch here, and that's actually quite a good thing. You should feel this contracting in your obliques. That's kind of the side of your abs. Squeeze your butt together and push those hips forward. You want to stay in a nice straight line with these. They're a lot easier if you pike the hips and stick your bum back or overarch your lower back. Again, we're going for that straight, almost slightly rounded lower back with these as you squeeze those glutes into a posterior tilt. It's okay to have the feet staggered instead of on top of each other for a bit more stability. Again, try and pull that chest up as well. Don't round the shoulders and don't look down at your feet. Try and look straight forward. That's just going to get everything to line up really nicely. So this exercise is really challenging for your scapulars as well as your core. So this is for the shoulder blades. As you come down into this exercise, so as you bring that elbows towards the ground, you're going to push through the shoulders and try and drive those shoulders apart, just like we did with those banded front raises. The feet are staggered. Get the top foot a little bit in front of the bottom foot, and that's going to help you turn and keep your balance as you do so. It's quite a challenging exercise, so this might be one of the last ones on the series that you get to tick off the list. Great there, so push through that elbow, keep the core tight, get that elbow to touch the floor, and then squeeze the shoulder blades together a little bit as you come out of that. Next up, we've got a set of cat-cows. So with these, you're going to push up through the shoulder blades, protract as much as possible, and then put the head up and arch the back as you come through. Just 5 of these. Try and get a really nice stretch. Try and feel the whole back moving, so every single vertebrae is kind of getting a little bit of attention here. Really nice stretch, just kind of gets everything moving. You should be pretty warm by this point anyway, but it's nice to hit that again. After that, we're going into some scap shrugs. So the point here is you're going to feel your shoulder blades compress together, and then you're going to drive them as far apart as possible. So that's full retraction and full protraction. Try and keep the core tight and keep a posterior pelvic tilt with these. These are really, really valuable for helping your push-ups and handstands. So now we've got some fire hydrants. So you're going to pull that knee into your chest from all fours, out as wide as you can, and then back. So as you come back, try and turn that foot towards the ceiling and that knee down towards the ground. So we're getting as wide a circle as possible. This is really good because you're going to engage the glute minimum, glute medius, and the glute max all through their different range of motions. So going from that abduction through to the adduction and hip extension is a really, really good way to open up the hips. If you've got trouble hitting full depth in a squat, this is a great exercise to do. Really good there. Try and keep the core tight as you do this and push through the hands as well. So yeah, try and make these nice and smooth. Really try and feel the muscle working. It's not just about doing the reps, it's about feeling that engagement. So now we've got some Turkish sit-ups. So you're going to use the weight here, grab that. And that's just going to help you kind of counterbalance a little bit and also give you something a little to push against. So as you come up, you're going to round the back one at a time. Ooh, wait for it to start here. Good. And then actually push that weight up as you come through. So it's okay to extend the shoulder and then come up and through. So really, really important here to roll the back. If you find trouble keeping the back flat on the ground and rolling up one by one, you can actually bend the knees a little bit here. Emily's got fairly good mobility, so she's keeping her legs straight. Also, if you're a little bit tight in the hips, it can help to bend the knees a bit, just to kind of give you that hip range of motion, because if you don't have 90 degrees, then you obviously can't do this. So now we're going to take that weight. These are much easier with a weight actually compared to using no weight, so keep that on there, and that's just going to help you counterbalance. So you come up into a tuck position, keep the knees hovering off the ground, pause a little bit at the top and contract the abs. It's a really nice kind of first step towards getting L-sits. That little bit of hip flexion with the lower abdominal contraction has a lot of carryover to a lot of exercises down the line. So focus on this one, we're almost done. Good, so notice how she's letting her feet touch the ground and relaxing between the reps. That's fine. If you want to make these a little bit harder, you can keep the feet off the floor. However, be aware, if you're going to do that, then keep that lower back pressed into the ground the whole time. Don't let that lower back arch up off the ground in order to get the legs out. And hold them off the ground. Okay, so now we're going to have a bent hollow hold. So she's just going to reach forward, push her lower back into the ground. And hold that there. So these are actually pretty tricky. Pull those shoulders up as high as you can. Get those knees kind of a little bit past vertical, feet just hovering off the floor. Tuck the chin in, round the shoulders, pull the abs in, really feel those lower abs engage. If you do this right, you can get really quick build-up of lactic acid in those abdominal muscles. Really great exercise. Just going to hold this for 30 seconds here. Good, if that's starting to burn, that's fine. Just keep on pushing at it. 30 seconds in this can actually seem like quite a long time. Now, just to finish, we're going to come up into a weighted hang. It's just a nice way to finish. Grab that dumbbell. Again, 2 kilos to 5 kilos for most people will be absolutely enough. If you're an absolute beast, you might want to take it to 6 or 7, but I wouldn't go any heavier than that. Keep those legs locked out, chin down. We're laying the back round and decompress. So I find it helps to kind of squeeze the quads and pinch the knees in a little bit, and that's going to really help you feel it in the hamstrings rather than in the hips. If you feel a little bit of a tightness behind the kneecaps, that's absolutely fine. It just may be that you've got some tightness in your calves, and maybe your sciatic nerve's a little bit tight too. That's fine. We've actually got ways to deal with that in another series. And then slowly come out of that. And that's the whole series done. Good job.